Hey again, it's Clinton here with more Destiny. Today I'm reviewing the Evergreen 2.1, I think that's how you pronounce it, a rare pulse rifle that is part of the Dark Below DLC weapon catalog. I got this gun almost 2 months ago, and while I wasn't fond of pulse rifles at the time, I was very impressed with the stats, and so I held on to it. When the Weapon Balance Update 1.1.1 rolled out last week and buffed the damage of pulse rifles by nearly 10%, I knew now would be the perfect time to put a spotlight on the Evergreen. If you're anything like me, you've been playing Destiny long enough now that you've gotten into a steady rhythm of dismantling green and blue loot drops. But there are actually a number of rare weapons and even some greens that you really should not sleep on. This review was definitely inspired by an article I read some time ago on Planet Destiny that highlighted the top 10 rare weapons to own. Although the Evergreen was not on this list, reading about these diamonds in the rough reminded me that Destiny is not always about the exotics. Those lowly blues clogging up your vault can pull their own weight even if they lack the magic sparkle, and the Evergreen 2.1 is a perfect example of this kind of weapon. So to start things off, what is this gun and how can you get it? As I've said already, the Evergreen 2.1 is a rare pulse rifle that you equip in your primary weapon slot. Like the other blue items you can obtain it as a random enemy loot drop or when you decrypt a rare engram. The Evergreen is not sold by the tower vendors. Some good avenues for increasing your odds of finding this weapon is to spend time playing in the Strike playlists, doing the weekly Heroic Strike, and competing in the Crucible. Appearance-wise, the Evergreen looks a lot like other pulse rifles. It sports dual ribs on top of the barrel, and a bullpup magazine design, which means the ammo clip snaps into the stock of the gun, not below the barrel. It's bulkier looking than most auto rifles, and the Evergreen sets itself apart with the green paint job and white highlights. It's not going to be the center of attention when you're out on the battlefield, but it's certainly not the ugliest weapon design out there either. The look of the gun is perfectly serviceable, and that's fine once you discover how capable it is in combat. Let's take a look at the Evergreen's base stats and see how it stacks up. Right off the bat, you'll notice that the Evergreen has good impact and extremely high stability for its class. These two traits really work well together since the biggest criticisms of pulse rifles has been their low damage output coupled with the need to consistently land all 3 rounds from a single burst. The Evergreen addresses these issues head-on with above average impact and solid base stability right out of the gate. There is very little drift when you pull the trigger, which helps to ensure you get the full value out of each burst. While the rate of fire is average at 59, that just means you need to handle this gun like you would a typical hand cannon or slower firing scout rifle.
Heavy ammo on the way.
The attack rating begins at 272 and caps at 294. Being a rare weapon, this means you won't be taking it with you on nightfalls and raids, but it should be perfectly fine on patrols, story missions, and regular strikes, so long as you have other options in your loadout to make up for the lower DPS. Reload speed is reasonable, and the magazine size is 27, which will give you 9 bursts before you need to reload your clip. I'll get more into weapon handling characteristics and PvP performance once I talk more about the upgrades. So the scopes and upgrades will vary for each unique instance of this weapon. The options I got with my Evergreen are the Red Dot OES, Red Dot ORS1, Focus Lens FLS2, and for the first perk I got Rangefinder. For perk number 2, I had a choice of hand-loaded or fitted stock. Now these scopes and perks generally work out for what the Evergreen is best at, which is medium to medium long range combat. I prefer the Focus Lens FLS2 over the red dots here because the zoom isn't as drastic and I find the blocky lens casing of the ORS-1 too distracting. It's actually my least favorite scope out of all the scopes in the game, I think. Focus lens decreases the stability, but I make up for that by picking fitted stock. I already have Rangefinder, so picking hand-loaded would be a bit of an overkill considering that the range and accuracy is already pretty good. Your version of Evergreen will probably have a different perk set. When reviewing your own gun, consider these other great perks. For the first perk slot, you could probably pick Counterbalance, Headseeker, Outlaw, Hipfire, Rodeo, or Zen Moment. In the second perk slot, you could pick Speed Reload as well as Single Point Sling. Personally, I like to select perks that emphasize the strengths of a particular weapon before looking for ways to shore up its weaknesses. Evergreen already has great stability, but fitted stock maxes the stability out, turning it into a burst fire laser rifle. Headshots become very rewarding, and I found myself aiming for the head and expecting similar results as I would with a powerful hand cannon. Rangefinder, Counterbalance, Headseeker, Outlaw, and Rodeo are all going to either improve the stability and accuracy of Evergreen, or reward you for nailing those precision kills. Because the magazine size is generous enough, I don't think perks like Secret Round or Performance Bonus are going to be that helpful. Full Auto may be a great perk as well, but I find that the rate of fire is not high enough to justify this. Evergreen doesn't fire nearly as fast enough as a Bad Juju or the Stranger's Rifle. You end up with a little bit too much time in between bursts. This will affect your overall accuracy, so you're better off pulling the trigger each time and making each burst count. There are fewer options for the second perk slot, but they're all pretty good. Speed Reload is going to keep up your overall DPS and will be a godsend for compulsive reloaders like myself. Single Point Sling is going to improve your mobility while you're aiming down the sights, which is great since that's how you should always be firing this gun. Switching back quickly to Evergreen after taking some shots with your sniper rifle will also help you survive a rapidly evolving combat engagement. Which brings us to the final and most important segment of this review. How does this gun perform? As I alluded to earlier, the lower damage cap keeps the Evergreen from being your go-to for the hardest PvE content. But it's a great pulse rifle to pull out on those casual outings with friends or on patrols. Where the Evergreen really shines is in the Crucible. The high impact and range translates into a pulse rifle that hits like a hand cannon. 2 full bursts to the head should put down most Guardians in PvP. 3 full bursts to center mass should do the same. The high stability is really going to help you get all 3 rounds on target, so always be gunning for the center of your target's face in medium or close range. At the longer ranges, I find aiming for the neck does the trick for landing those precision shots. Let's take a quick look at some Crucible Damage numbers. The Evergreen will do 26 body damage per round for a total of 78 total on a burst, and 38 head damage per round for a total of 114 damage per burst. I like to run the Evergreen with a sniper rifle and adopt a slower, more methodical approach. This weapon is not about running and gunning, mostly due to its mediocre rate of fire. By running a snipe as your secondary, you can easily soften up targets at a distance before finishing them off with a single burst from the Evergreen. It's a really satisfying loadout to run, and you have a plethora of great legendary and exotic sniper rifles to choose from. So to wrap things up, I'd like to remind you to inspect all your rare weapons before dismantling them. You never know what you're going to find. The Evergreen 2.1 is an extremely solid pulse rifle for crucible play. It hits like a truck with laser-like accuracy, while possessing no glaring weaknesses. Sure, it could fire a bit faster, but then we may potentially have an overpowered gun on our hands. If you like Destiny's PvP, do not sleep on this gun if you find it out in the wild. best to use it while pulse rifles are enjoying their time in the sun post-patch 1.1.1. And that's it for my review of the Evergreen. Thanks very much for watching. If you have an idea for an underrated diamond and rough type weapon you'd like me to review, then please let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.